From the day Sarah started working the night shift at City General Hospital, there was something different about her approach to patients. Other nurses would rush through their duties, check vitals, distribute medicine, file reports. But not Sarah. This girl would sit with the lonely ones, hold hands with the scared ones, and even share her own dinner with those who had nobody to bring them food. Sarah was 28 years old and had been struggling since nursing school. Every month was a battle with student loan payments, rent for her tiny apartment, and medical bills for her grandmother who was fighting diabetes. She would walk 45 minutes to work just to save the $3 bus fare, and her dinner was often just crackers and tea. But despite her own troubles, Sarah never showed it to her patients. Her colleagues thought she was too soft. "Sarah, you can't save everybody," Nurse Janet would say. "These people come and go. Don't get too attached." But Sarah would just smile and continue her rounds. She believed every patient deserved dignity, whether they were rich or poor, clean or dirty, grateful or rude. On Tuesday nights, the emergency room was always busiest. Drug dealers with gunshot wounds, drunk drivers with broken bones, and homeless people seeking shelter from the cold. Most staff tried to avoid the homeless patients. They smelled, rarely had insurance, and often died anyway. But Sarah treated them all the same. Little did Sarah know that her next patient would change her life forever. Sometimes God tests us when we least expect it, and sometimes the test comes disguised as the very thing we want to run away from. It was 11:30 p.m. when the ambulance sirens wailed outside City General. Sarah was organizing medicine in the supply room when she heard the paramedics rushing through the doors. Male, approximately 65, found collapsed behind the shopping mall. No ID, appears homeless, possible heart failure. When Sarah saw him, her heart immediately went out to him. He was thin, dirty, and wearing clothes that looked like they hadn't been washed in months. His gray beard was matted, his shoes had holes, and he smelled like the streets. Most nurses would have put on extra gloves and kept their distance, but Sarah approached him like he was her own grandfather. "Sir, can you hear me?" she said gently, taking his hand. His eyes opened slowly, and for a moment, Sarah was struck by something unusual. Despite his homeless appearance, his eyes were sharp, intelligent, and surprisingly calm. Where am I?" he whispered. "You're at City General Hospital. You're safe now. My name is Sarah, I'm your nurse tonight." She squeezed his hand reassuringly. "The doctor is coming to examine you, but I need to get some information first. What's your name?" He hesitated for a moment, as if deciding whether to trust her. "Joseph," he said quietly. "Joseph, just Joseph." Dr. Martinez finished his examination with a grim expression. Sarah followed him outside the room. "How bad is it?" she asked. The doctor shook his head. "Severe heart failure. His heart is barely functioning. Without surgery, which he can't afford." He didn't need to finish the sentence. That night, Sarah made sure Joseph had extra blankets, helped him sip water when he was too weak to hold the cup, and even stayed past her shift to make sure he was comfortable. As she was leaving at dawn, Joseph called out weakly, "Nurse Sarah, thank you." Something in his voice made her pause. It wasn't just gratitude, it sounded like relief, like someone who had been waiting a long time to meet a good person. For the next week, Joseph remained in the charity ward, and Sarah made sure she was assigned to his care every night. She brought him real food from home instead of the bland hospital meals, helped him wash properly, and even brought old magazines for him to read during the long, painful hours. What surprised Sarah was how educated Joseph seemed. When she read to him from a business magazine, he would make insightful comments about market trends and company strategies. "You know a lot about business, Mr. Joseph," she observed one night. He smiled weakly. "I've watched the world for many years." Other hospital staff started to notice Sarah's dedication. "Girl, you're spoiling that homeless man," Nurse Janet warned. "He's probably just taking advantage of your kindness." But Sarah defended him. "He's dying, Janet. The least we can do is show him some human dignity." Joseph began to open up about his life on the streets, though Sarah noticed he was vague about his past. "I had a family once," he told her. "But money makes people do terrible things." I learned that people only love you for what you can give them, not for who you are. Sarah felt deep sadness for him. Not everyone is like that, Mr. Joseph. Some people care just because it's right to care. Joseph looked at her with tears in his eyes. You're the first person in 8 years to prove that to me. One night, Sarah found Joseph writing something on hospital stationery. What are you working on? She asked. Just putting some thoughts on paper, he replied, quickly folding the papers. Important thoughts. Things I should have done a long time ago. Sarah noticed that despite his condition, Joseph seemed more at peace each day. It was as if her care was healing something deeper than his failing heart. She had no idea that every act of kindness was being carefully noted, and that someone was making the most important decision of his life. As Joseph's condition worsened, Sarah found herself spending more time with him during her breaks. She would sit beside his bed, sometimes in comfortable silence, sometimes sharing stories about her grandmother or her dreams of opening a clinic for poor patients someday. You want to open a clinic? Joseph asked one evening, his voice weak but interested. Sarah nodded. I grew up poor, Mr. Joseph. I know what it's like when you can't afford proper medical care. My grandmother almost died once because we couldn't pay for her medication. If I ever have the means, I want to help people like us. Joseph listened intently. That's beautiful, Sarah. The world needs more people like you. He paused, breathing heavily. Tell me, if you had unlimited resources, what would you do? Sarah's eyes lit up despite the sadness of the situation. I'd build clinics in every poor neighborhood. I'd make sure no one dies because they can't afford treatment. I'd train more nurses and doctors to care for the forgotten people. She stopped, embarrassed. Sorry, I'm probably talking too much. No, Joseph said firmly. Don't apologize for having a good heart. The world tried to kill my heart, but you've shown me it's still possible to care without expecting anything in return. That night, Joseph asked Sarah about her family. She told him about her grandmother, how she was working double shifts to pay for her insulin and dialysis treatments. She raised me after my parents died. She's all I have left. Joseph nodded slowly. Family isn't always blood, Sarah. Sometimes God sends us family in unexpected ways. What Sarah didn't know was that Joseph had already made several phone calls during the day. His lawyer, Mr. Adewale, had visited twice that week, disguised as a hospital chaplain. Papers had been signed, documents updated, and preparations made. The man everyone thought was a dying homeless person was actually orchestrating one of the largest inheritance transfers in the city's history. As Sarah left that morning, Joseph called out, Sarah, if something happens to me, promise me you'll keep being you. Don't let the world change your heart. Sarah turned back, confused by the serious tone. Nothing's going to happen, Mr. Joseph. I'll see you tonight. Saturday night arrived with unusual quietness in the hospital. Sarah came to work feeling tired. She had spent the day helping her grandmother with dialysis treatment and barely had time to eat. She almost called in sick, but something made her change her mind. Let me just check on Mr. Joseph first, she told herself. When she entered his room, Joseph looked different. His breathing was more labored, and his skin had a grayish color that Sarah recognized too well. She knew this would likely be his last night, and her heart broke. Over the past 2 weeks, this homeless man had become like a grandfather to her. Mr. Joseph, how are you feeling? She asked, taking his hand. It was cold and weak. Sarah, I was hoping you'd come tonight. I have something important to tell you. His voice was barely a whisper. Sarah pulled her chair closer. What is it? Do you want me to call someone for you? A relative maybe? Joseph shook his head slowly. No relatives. They think I'm already dead. But you, Sarah, you've been the daughter I never had. Joseph reached under his pillow and pulled out several folded papers. I want you to keep these safe. Very safe. Tomorrow, a man named Mr. Adewale will come looking for you. Give him these papers. Sarah was confused but took them. Mr. Joseph, what's going on? You're scaring me. Sarah, Joseph said with surprising strength, my real name is Joseph Emmanuel Okafor. I wasn't always homeless. 8 years ago I was someone else. Someone with too much money and too little love. He paused, struggling to breathe. My own brothers tried to poison me for my inheritance. My wife was sleeping with my business partner. Everyone I trusted betrayed me. Sarah's eyes widened. So you chose to live on the streets? Joseph nodded. I wanted to disappear, to find out if anyone in this world could love a person just for being human. For 8 years, I searched. You're the first person who passed the test. At 3:47 a.m., Joseph Emmanuel Okafor took his last breath, holding Sarah's hand, with a peaceful smile on his face. His final words were, "Thank you for showing me that angels are real." For 3 days after Joseph's death, Sarah couldn't stop crying. She had lost patience before, but this felt different. She had grown genuinely attached to the kind homeless man who spoke like a professor and looked at her like she was precious. The hospital was preparing for a pauper's burial since no family had claimed the body. Sarah even offered to contribute her small savings to buy him a proper coffin. He deserves better than a cardboard box, she told the administration. On Wednesday morning, Sarah was just finishing her night shift when the front desk called her. "Nurse Sarah, there's a gentleman here asking for you. Says it's about the homeless patient who passed." Sarah was confused but went to the lobby. The man who greeted her looked nothing like the visitors she was used to seeing. He wore an expensive suit, carried a leather briefcase, and had the bearing of someone very important. "Miss Sarah? I am Barrister Adewale. I believe Mr. Joseph left something for me with you?" Sarah's heart started racing. She remembered the papers Joseph had given her, which she had kept safely in her locker. Yes, he did. But who are you exactly? How did you know Joseph?" Mr. Adewale's expression was serious. "Miss Sarah, I need you to sit down. What I'm about to tell you will change your life forever. The man you knew as Joseph was actually my client, Joseph Emmanuel Okafor. He was the founder and owner of Okafor Industries." Sarah looked confused. "I've never heard of, Okafor Industries? The company that owns half the shopping malls in the city." Mr. Adewale nodded. "The same one. Miss Sarah, the homeless man you cared for was worth $2.3 billion. Sarah's mouth fell open. She couldn't speak for several minutes. Finally, she managed to whisper, "That's impossible. He was homeless. He had nothing. He couldn't even afford his medication. He chose to live that way," the lawyer explained. 8 years ago, his family tried to kill him for his money. He faked his death and lived on the streets, testing humanity. You, Miss Sarah, were the only person in 8 years who showed him genuine kindness without knowing who he was." Sarah felt dizzy. I don't understand. Why are you telling me this?" Mr. Adewale opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick legal document. "Because, Miss Sarah, Mr. Okafor has left you everything." Sarah stared at the legal documents like they were written in a foreign language. "Left me what exactly?" she asked, her voice shaking. Mr. Adewale adjusted his glasses and began reading from the will. "To Miss Sarah, the angel nurse who showed me that goodness still exists in this world, I leave my entire estate valued at $2.3 billion, including 47 properties across Nigeria, Ghana, and the United Kingdom, stocks in 23 companies, and all my business interests." Sarah's legs gave way, and she had to sit down immediately. This is a joke, right? Hidden cameras? Someone is pranking me." She looked around the hospital lobby desperately. Mr. Adewale pulled out his business card and official identification. "Miss Sarah, I am the senior partner at Adewale and Associates. We have been Mr. Okafor's legal representatives for 25 years. This is very real." He showed her photographs of properties, bank statements, and business documents. "Mr. Okafor updated his will just 2 weeks ago, naming you as his sole heir." Sarah started crying uncontrollably. "I can't accept this. I was just doing my job. I don't deserve billions of dollars for being nice to a patient." Mr. Adewale smiled gently. "Miss Sarah, Mr. Okafor spent 8 years looking for someone worthy. You have no idea how rare you are." He continued reading the conditions. "The inheritance comes with one requirement, that you use at least 30% of the wealth to help the less fortunate, as you have already shown the heart to do so. Sarah wiped her tears. He remembered our conversation about the clinic? Miss Sarah, he remembered everything. Every kindness, every gentle word, every time you stayed past your shift just to keep him company. He documented it all. Mr. Adewale pulled out a leather journal. He wrote about you every day for 2 weeks. Sarah opened the journal with trembling hands. The first entry read, Day 2847 on the streets, met an angel today. Her name is Sarah. She gave me water and called me, sir, like I was somebody important. For the first time in years, I felt human again. Mr. Mr. Okafor, he was watching and testing people all these years. Sarah asked. Not testing, Miss Sarah. Hoping. He was hoping to find one person who could love without expecting anything in return. You were that person. The reality was slowly sinking in. Sarah, who had been struggling to pay her $800 rent, was now worth $2.3 billion. But instead of excitement, she felt overwhelmed and scared. What am I supposed to do with all this money? News of the inheritance spread faster than Sarah could have imagined. Within 48 hours of the will reading, Joseph's estranged family emerged from hiding like termites after rain. His 2 brothers, who hadn't seen him in 8 years and thought he was dead, suddenly appeared at the lawyer's office with their own legal team. This is impossible, shouted Emeka Okafor, Joseph's younger brother. A homeless man cannot give billions to a stranger. This will is fake. His older brother, Chidi, was more calculated. Mr. Adewale, we are contesting this will. Our brother was clearly mentally unstable. Living on the streets proves he wasn't in his right mind. The media caught wind of the story, and suddenly Sarah's face was on every newspaper in the country. Billionaire leaves fortune to nurse, screamed the headlines. Homeless millionaire's secret revealed. Reporters camped outside her apartment and the hospital, trying to get interviews. Sarah's life became chaos overnight. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing with calls from lawyers, journalists, distant relatives she never knew existed, and people claiming to be her long-lost friends. She had to take leave from work because she couldn't function normally. This is too much, Sarah confided to her grandmother. Maybe I should just give the money back to his family. I never asked for any of this. Her grandmother, despite being sick, had wisdom that came with age. My child, if a man chose you over his own blood family, there must be a reason. Don't reject a blessing because it came in packaging you didn't expect. Meanwhile, the Okafor brothers hired private investigators to dig up dirt on Sarah, hoping to prove she had somehow manipulated their brother. They found nothing. Sarah's record was spotless, no criminal history, no suspicious connections, just a hard-working nurse who helped people. The court case began 3 weeks later. The brothers' lawyer argued that Joseph was mentally incompetent when he wrote the will. Your Honor, no sane billionaire gives his fortune to a complete stranger. Our client was clearly suffering from mental illness brought on by living on the streets. But Mr. Adewale had prepared well. He presented Joseph's medical records showing he was of sound mind, video evidence of him conducting business transactions while homeless, and most importantly, his detailed journals documenting his decision-making process over 8 years. The judge reviewed everything carefully. The fate of $2.3 billion hung in the balance, and Sarah didn't know whether to hope she would win or lose. The courtroom was packed when Mr. Adewale presented Joseph's journals as evidence. Your Honor, these journals show clearly that Mr. Okafor was not only mentally competent but was conducting an 8-year social experiment to find someone worthy of his trust. He began reading entries aloud. Day 234. Pretended to be sick today to test the hospital staff. Nurses walked past me for 6 hours. Security guard told me to leave. No one showed basic human kindness. Day 1205. Slept outside the church for 3 months. Church members stepped over me every Sunday. Pastor preached about loving the poor but never acknowledged me sitting on his doorstep. Day 2847. Found her. Nurse Sarah treated me like royalty when I looked like nothing. She didn't know I was watching her with other patients too. She treats everyone the same way. The judge was visibly moved as more entries were read. Joseph had documented not just Sarah's kindness to him, but how she treated all patients, how she shared her own food, how she stayed late without being paid overtime. The brothers' lawyer tried to argue that the will was still invalid because Sarah had undue influence. She manipulated a dying man's emotions. But then Mr. Adewale dropped the biggest bomb. Your Honor, Mr. Okafor didn't just write one will. He wrote 17 different wills over 8 years, always waiting to find the right person. Here are copies of all the previous versions. In each one, he left his fortune to whoever would prove themselves worthy. Miss Sarah is the first person who qualified. He pulled out security footage from the hospital showing Sarah's interactions with Joseph. This woman didn't know she was being tested. She didn't know she was being recorded. She was just being herself, consistently kind, even when tired, even when no one was watching. The brothers' case crumbled. How could they claim Sarah manipulated Joseph when there was video evidence showing she treated all patients the same way? How could they argue Joseph was mentally unstable when his journals showed detailed, rational thinking over 8 years? Joseph's final journal entry was read last. Sarah held my hand as I died. She cried real tears for a homeless stranger. I have found my heir, not because she was clever or beautiful or rich, but because she has something more valuable than all my billions, a pure heart. Let her inherit not just my money, but my responsibility to help others. The judge's ruling was unanimous. The will was valid, and Sarah was the rightful heir to the Okafor fortune. 6 months later, Sarah stood in front of the gleaming glass building that housed her new foundation headquarters. The sign read, Joseph's Hope Foundation, Healthcare for All. She still couldn't believe this was her life now. Sarah had kept her promise to use the inheritance wisely. She opened 5 free medical clinics in the poorest neighborhoods, paid off medical debt for over 1,000 families, and established a scholarship fund for nursing students from low-income backgrounds. But she also made sure to take care of herself and her grandmother. Her grandmother now had the best medical care money could buy. The most surprising thing was that Sarah kept working as a nurse, though now only 3 days a week at City General. Money didn't change my calling, she explained to reporters. I'm still the same person who became a nurse to help people. She had moved into one of Joseph's modest properties, not the mansion, but a simple 3-bedroom house. I don't need a palace, she said. I need a home. She used the mansion as a training center for nurses who wanted to specialize in caring for homeless patients. Sarah often visited Joseph's grave, bringing fresh flowers and updates about the foundation. Mr. Joseph, we treated 2,000 patients this month. Your money is changing lives every day. She would sit there for hours, still amazed that a dying homeless man had trusted her with his life's work. The story had inspired people worldwide. #JosephChallenge became viral, with people sharing acts of kindness toward homeless individuals. Sarah received letters from nurses, doctors, and ordinary people who were motivated to treat everyone with dignity. One evening, as Sarah was leaving the foundation office, she noticed a homeless woman sitting outside. Without hesitation, Sarah approached her. Ma'am, are you okay? Do you need help? The woman looked up gratefully. Just hungry, my daughter. Sarah smiled and helped the woman to her feet. Come, let me buy you dinner. And maybe we can talk about getting you some medical attention too. As they walked together, Sarah thought about Joseph's words. Sometimes God sends us family in unexpected ways. She realized now that Joseph hadn't just given her money, he had given her a purpose bigger than herself. Every person she helped, every life she touched, was a living memorial to the homeless billionaire who chose love over revenge, who chose hope over bitterness. And somewhere in heaven, Joseph Emmanuel Okafor was smiling, knowing his fortune was in the right hands at last. If you enjoyed and learned from this story, like and subscribe to this channel for more stories. We shall see again. Thank you.